Hi guys, it's Mark Zicree, Mr. Sci-Fi, also known as Mark Zicree of Space Command, and today I'm going to talk about trophies and awards because there's something that most of us love getting. We love winning, yay! So let me talk about some of these things because I know people who've won many of the major ones, and so let's get into this. It's going to be pretty fun. I have friends who've won Emmys and Oscars, and we'll talk about some of them as we go on today. But also for me, the top awards, the ones I would most like to have on my shelf, are the Hugo and Nebula Awards. They are the top awards in science fiction. The Hugos are given out by the World Science Fiction Convention. The Nebulas are given out by the Science Fiction Writers of America. I've been nominated for both, for World Enough in Time, which was the Star Trek episode that I did with George Takei. Michael Reeves and I co-wrote it. Elaine and I executive produced and directed it. And it won the TV Guide Award and was nominated for the Hugo and Nebula. And pretty soon I'll post that entire episode here on Mr. Sci-Fi so you can watch it. I'm very, very proud of it. It stars George Takei and Christina Moses, who most recently starred in Containment on the CW, and she's doing an 8-episode arc of the originals right now, and she'll be back in Space Command as well. But let's get into this fascinating thing about awards. So my first experience of awards in terms of people I knew winning them or having them, I think perhaps that would be Theodore Sturgeon, the great Theodore Sturgeon, who wrote for Star Trek, and he was a wonderful novelist and a short story writer, just a phenomenal writer. And he wrote Amok Time and Shore Leave for Star Trek, two of the great episodes. And he became my mentor. I took a writing class from him when I was 19, freshly back from Clarion. He taught an adult education class at UCLA. Michael Reeves, who became a dear friend of mine, was his teaching assistant. And Ted became a very good friend, and we would hang out often. And I went into, he had a little apartment. It wasn't even a real apartment. It was a converted laundry room, a laundry room that had been converted into an apartment in Silver Lake, where Michael Reeves lived. And on his shelf, there were the Hugo and the Nebula Awards. Now, the Nebula is a block of lucite with a spiral galaxy in it, and the Hugo is a silver rocket ship. It started being awarded in the 1950s, and many of my favorite science fiction writers have won it, and we'll get into that as well. So that was the first place I saw it, and I just coveted those awards. I longed for a time when I might be nominated or win one of those wonderful awards. And of course Ted was very gracious, and they were just he never talked about them. They were just there. And years later, not that many years later, I actually started writing it when I was 22. I started working on the Twilight Zone Companion, and this was 2 years after Rod Serling had died. And his house was exactly as he left it in Pacific Palisades. Carol Serling, his widow, was living there, and she gave me full access to everything. Rod's films of the Twilight Zone, big 16mm cans of film that were stacked high in the garage, his scrapbooks, his notebooks, his files, his scripts, everything. And there was one room that was just devoted to the awards. And there were the 6 Emmys that Rod won, and the Peabody Award. And he also had won the Hugo, 3 Hugos, I believed. And the first time Carol and I talked about those were when Twilight Zone magazine started up, and she was going to be an editor on that magazine. And she said, well, teach me everything about science fiction, because she really didn't know much about it and at that time. And so I said, well, there's this science fiction convention, the World Science Fiction Convention, and they give the most prestigious award in science fiction, the Hugo, and it's shaped like a silver rocket. And she led me into the trophy room, and she picked up one of the 3 Hugos, and she said, oh, so that's what these are. We were using them as doorstops. So now what I should have said was, well, why don't you let me take one of those home? But I wasn't that quick on the draw, so unfortunately. So but that was again where I had very close contact with the Hugo, but in the years since, well, first of all, something I should show you. This is the acting award that Elaine won in high school. Here it is. So this sits on our shelf. Very pretty, very pretty. And of course, my friend Michael Reeves and many of my friends have won Emmys, and maybe someday I'll have one of those. It's a gorgeous statue. And another experience I had with awards was, again, years later, Ray Bradbury became my dear friend and mentor. And for over 10 years, I would go to his house once a month, and we'd sit and we'd talk about life and career and art and writing and all of that. And in fact, I'm writing a book right now called My Ray Bradbury about that experience, that friendship. And And so I'm sitting there in Ray's room, and it's surrounded by all these wonderful items from his life and his career, original artwork from his book covers, all sorts of stuff, just phenomenal things. And I look over, and there's an Oscar. And I remembered that Ray had won an Emmy for his script, The Halloween Tree, which was made into an animated film that aired on television. But I didn't remember him winning an Oscar. And I said, well, what's the story with the Oscar, Ray? And he said, oh, a neighbor gave it to me. Actually, one of his friends and neighbors had actually willed it to him when he had died. I think he'd been an art director. And so I said to Ray, well, can I take a photo with that? Would you mind? He said, no, go right ahead. So here is a photo of me. Can we get that? There we go. With the Oscar that Ray had in his room. Pretty fun, pretty cool. My friend Doug Drexler also has won 2 Emmys and an Oscar. And they're in a display case, and he is a great visual effects artist and makeup artist, and phenomenal to look at these things in person. But then, of course, I did World Enough in Time, and that got nominated for the Hugo and the Nebula. And then I also produced the Twilight Zone Blu-ray set, which won the Rondo Award, which actually I think is over here. Hang on one second. Hold your horses. Hold your horses. I'll go get it. It is actually one of the most homely awards in the universe. Here we go. Here we go. Ah, there we go. This is the Rondo Award, which is prestigious. You know, there are many people who would love to have this award, but I actually find it kind of. It's based on Rondo Hatton, who was a character actor in the 40s. He was in various movies and usually played the heavy, literally. And he had acromegaly, which made him, you know, look grotesque. So this is, it's such a homely award that I actually tried to get it gold-plated, but I was told because it's not metal, it wouldn't work. So, but then so for the Twilight Zone Blu-ray, I won the Rondo, and I also won this, which is a Saturn Award, which is actually a very pretty award, which I really like. I think it's actually extremely attractive. And here, we can look at it again. There we are. And so these were, you know, and then when I did Space Command, one of our Space Command backers came to the round table I run one night, and he said, I have something for you. And he said, I think you, with Space Command, because of Space Command, you deserve this more than anyone else. So what he gave me, I'll show you this. This is a George Foster Peabody Award, the coveted Peabody Award, and this was actually won by Gene Roddenberry. It says, on the back, it says, awarded by the University of Georgia, Star Trek, The Big Goodbye, 1987. There it is. Look at that. And so this is one of the most prestigious awards in media, and it's been won again by many of my friends and cohorts, Rod Serling among them. And you know, so it's great to have it here on the shelf, and I really thank that kind man who gave it to me. He'd gotten it at an auction after Roddenberry's death, and it's just, you know, phenomenal. And so here's the fun part. Here's the fun part. So now I'd heard for many years that the Hugo Award was based on a hood ornament of a car. But I didn't know which car, and it was just a rumor. And again, it's a silver rocket. It's a great-looking award, and but this was the, you know, what I'd heard of it through you know, I thought perhaps it was an urban myth. Who knows? But I went to the World Science Fiction Convention a few months ago in Kansas City, Missouri, and George R.R. Martin was there. George R.R. Martin, whom I worked with on the new Twilight Zone and on Beauty and the Beast, both of which I wrote for. And then George got tired of Hollywood and said, hell with Hollywood. He'd been trying to get pilots sold as series. He did a very good one called Doorways that was about a character who slides between parallel worlds. This was the same period as Sliders, and actually it was the better of the two shows. I liked that pilot very well, even though I produced Sliders, wrote and produced for Sliders. I thought Doorways, it was a shame it didn't get made as a show. But finally George got bummed out by Hollywood and went back to New Mexico, and he said, hell with it, I'm going to write a novel, a series of novels, on such a grand scale that they could never be made into a TV series. And of course he wrote Game of Thrones, and therein hangs a tale. But George for many years has had an annual Hugo Losers Party, and I, in fact, was invited to it the year that I was nominated for the Hugo and didn't win. I lost to Doctor Who, god damn it. And but this year he saw me and he gave me the invitation to the Hugo Losers Party this year. He actually rented a theater. It was quite a wonderful party. And what he did was there's been a big flap in science fiction. Some of you know about it, the sad puppies, the rabid puppies. It was these very extremist, conservative science fiction fans who basically stacked the decks for the Hugo nominations, got some really weird nominations put in, and a lot of people voted no award for certain categories because it was just rigged and slanted, and it was very ugly. But a lot of people came together to oppose it, which I'm glad of. And but George felt that certain stories and novellas, etc., would have been nominated if the ballot had appropriately reflected the views of science fiction fans. And so he gave out what he called the Alfie Awards, named after famous science fiction writer Alfred Bester, who wrote The Star's My Destination and The Demolished Man. And so the Alfie Awards, and they were all made from car hood ornaments. And they looked great, and the winners of them were extremely gratified to get an award from George R.R. Martin, who wouldn't be. But then at the beginning of that evening, George passed around a 1952 Oldsmobile hood ornament, and the central part of it was a rocket that looked exactly like a Hugo, and it had these two wings that came off of these two metal wings, but if you remove the center part, it would be a Hugo. So I found out that most of the Hugos were made from scratch. They were just inspired by that design. But in 1956, the award was actually an Oldsmobile hood ornament. And Robert Silverberg, the great Robert Silverberg, another of my heroes, a wonderful science fiction writer, got up. He's now, I guess, pushing 80. And he talked about when he was 21 years old and won the 1956 Hugo, that he loved it. He thought it looked better than the Hugos that had gone before that were small and made of tin, and this one was a substantial looking. And so I got back from the science fiction convention, and I was seized with an idea. My birthday was coming on, and I thought, well, why don't I make myself a Hugo? I didn't win it, but why don't I see if I can make one for myself? Not to pretend that it's a real one, not to pretend that I have, that I won. I still have hope of winning. I'm not done yet. Still writing, still cooking along, but I thought, let's see if I can do it. It'd be a fun little home experiment. So I went on eBay, and I found a 1952 Oldsmobile hood ornament, one that looked pretty damn good, and I bid on it, and glorioski, I won. And so my friend David Bartlett, who's been working with me on Space Command, took the hood ornament, and there were two screws that held the little side wings that had to come off, and of course they were rusted because it had been that way since 1952, and so 60 years or whatever it's been, and so longer than 60 years. So he used his magical abilities and got those off and put them on a base, and just kind of as a template, and gave it to me. And then I went to a trophy shop proper, and I had a base put on and a plaque, and the plaque read, "Mark Scott Zickrey made this Hugo from a 1952 Oldsmobile ornament." And then I put it on my shelf. So you will share it with me. Here is, and for those of you who know what a Hugo looks like, look at this thing. Now it looks, if you go online and Google Hugo Awards, now each year different cities in the United States and every now and then elsewhere in the world have the World Science Fiction Convention, and each World Science Fiction Convention can design a different base reflecting their city, and so the bases differ from year to year, but the rocket ornament is pretty much the same. So if you Google Hugo Award or James Tiptree Hugo Award particularly, you'll see something that looks pretty much identical to this. So this is my self-made and self-appointed and self-awarded Hugo Award, and but I put that in quotes. And so so that's some of my experience with different awards. It's been quite an amazing journey. I love winning. And I also love being nominated. I've also been nominated for the Humanitas Prize, which is very prestigious, and a number of other awards over the years, the Diane Thomas Award. And at the table, the table used to be called the Hamptons Table, and I created the prestigious Hamptons Prize, which we give out periodically. But the trick of it is you have to put the word prestigious in front of it if you quote it anywhere or on your resume. And one person, actually a director, put it on his resume when I hadn't awarded it to him, and I had to call him and say, take it off your resume. And Michael Reeves, who's a member of our roundtable, actually awarded it to me some years ago. So that also hangs on my wall not far from where I'm sitting. So that's about it for now. I just wanted to share all of these wonderful memories with you and show you my little home project for my birthday. So until next time, it's Mark Zickery of Space Command, Mark Zickery, Mr. Sci-Fi. If you're not subscribing to the Mr. Sci-Fi YouTube channel, please do. Spread the word. Contact your favorite science fiction websites, podcasts, etc. Let them know about Mr. Sci-Fi. We're going to be continuing these podcasts continuing on, and if you have anything you'd like me to talk about, I'd be happy to. The Arrival just came out. I'll probably talk about that soon. I'm watching Westworld and really enjoying it. There's many things ahead. So, and of course with Rogue One coming out soon, we'll have more to talk about in terms of the Star Wars universe too. So that's it for now. Until next time, it's Mark Zickery, Mr. Sci-Fi, and have a happy holiday, and we'll talk again soon. Bye-bye.